Good evening. I'm Newcastle Town Supervisor Ivy Poole. On behalf of the Newcastle Town Board, Deputy Supervisor Jeremy Saland, and Council members Lisa Katz, Lauren Levin, and Jason Lichtenthal, I would like to welcome you to the 2020 September 11th Memorial Ceremony. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we are holding the ceremony virtually this year, but with no less solemnity, as we gather together to honor and remember the thousands of lives lost on 9/11 and in the aftermath of these tragic events.
Shalom, this is Rabbi Jonathan Jaffe of Temple Bethel of Northern Westchester, honored to take part in today's observance of the memory of 9/11. Ribono Shel Olam, to the source of strength and connection that binds us, bring us together on this solemn occasion. In a world of anxiety, fear, and isolation, allow us to embrace the commonalities between us. Help us to see the Tselem Elohim, the divine image, which exists in each of us. As we mark this 19th anniversary of 9/11, may we not only remember the terror, destruction, and loss of that day, but also the brave ways in which everyday Americans came together to support one another. May we recall the memory of the brave who ran into buildings while others ran out. May we rekindle the spirit of those who risked their lives to pull others from the wreckage, who handed out food, water, and even shoes to those who fled the destruction. May our common challenges of pandemic, racial injustice, climate change, and economic insecurity bring us together in a sense of covenant. May our better selves emerge in response to such overwhelming obstacles. As our country experiences a death toll equal to that of 9/11 every 3 or 4 days, may we see each life not in terms of statistics, but as a unique universe of opportunity. May the needs of the vulnerable among us, the immune system deficient, the elderly, the first responder, the grocery clerk, bus driver, and yes, the teacher, be protected by an undying love and sense of gratitude. May this moment of turmoil allow our better selves to emerge just as on that fateful day. And then on this solemn anniversary, we may be as one. Hayom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad, and on that day, God will be one. Amen.
We represent Scout Troops 1, 2, and 3 of Chappaqua. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Scout salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2.
Oh, sleep, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the
September 11th, 2001 is a day that is etched in our memory, especially for so many New Yorkers. I'll never forget the feeling of standing at Ground Zero the next day, September 12th, watching firefighters break through the wall of black smoke surrounding Ground Zero. The sense of loss was overwhelming. I'll also never forget the victims, the family members and survivors that I met as senator from New York, or how proud I was to stand with all of our brave first and second responders, everybody who, instead of running away from danger, ran toward it to help others.
20 years ago, after 9/11, I joined with Senator Bob Dole to establish the Families of Freedom Fund to provide help for post-secondary education to families of those killed or permanently disabled as a result of the terrorist attack. We've helped thousands and thousands to get that education, and some are still eligible, so our commitment should remain steadfast. Today, Hillary and I are thinking of those we all lost and of the countless acts of heroism we saw in the days that followed. Out of a terrible tragedy, New York and America came together. We recovered together. We rebuilt together. We healed together. That's on our minds 19 years later, as our country grapples with the pandemic, a long overdue reckoning with institutionalized racism, and a moment when so many have lost loved ones and jobs.
Our hearts go out to all the people whose lives were forever changed that day. And may the courage, compassion, and resilience that so many showed then help light our path forward.
We remember that today. God bless you all. God bless their memory. And God bless the United States of America.
Present arms.
"19 years ago, New York was forever changed. Today, I join you in honoring our friends, neighbors, and loved ones who we lost that day, but will never forget. Even in our darkest of moments, we saw the best of our state. First responders running towards danger, communities coming together, strangers offering help. That's a testament to the power of New York spirit. Even in the face of extreme adversity, we stay strong, we stay united, and we keep moving forward. God bless you all."
On September 11th, 2001, unspeakable terror shook our nation to its core. 19 years later, horrific memories of this unimaginable tragedy remain all too familiar. Each year, Americans come together as one to remember the 3,000 innocent lives lost that day, and the thousands more who have been sickened or died from Ground Zero-related illnesses. As we console one another through remembrance, we also commit ourselves to service in our communities in a meaningful way to honor the sacrifices of so many. From brave first responders who ran into the towers to countless volunteers who cleared debris for days and weeks, their stories of selfless acts of courage and heroism inspire us always, and especially today, amidst the deadliest pandemic in a generation. We have again seen ordinary Americans' capacity to overcome and adapt to extraordinary circumstances. Our first responders, healthcare workers, grocery clerks, and so many other essential workers risk their lives day after day to help keep our communities healthy and safe. Their courage has lifted us and has given us all the strength to move forward. Despite the many challenges we have today, as with every anniversary of the September 11th attacks, we hold the victims and heroes of that tragic day and their families forever in our hearts. We will never forget.
All right, we're going to start with a prayer from Chief Iden. Father in heaven, God of love, compassion, and healing, look upon us as we gather today, recalling the attacks of 19 years ago. We turn to you for peace and security as we ask you to grant eternal light and peace to all who died that fateful day. The heroic firefighters, police officers, emergency service workers, and Port Authority personnel, along with all the innocent men and women who were victims of the attack. May you heal the painful memories from that day. Comfort and guide the family and friends of those who died. Give healing and patience to the survivors of the attacks who are still in pain. May those who survived feel gratitude, not guilt, and assure each person whose life changed forever of your protection and strength. As we remember September 11th, give us your strength to face the memory of the attacks and the changes it made in our lives. May you bless us and keep us. May your face shine upon us and protect us. And may you hold us in the hollow of your hand for days to come. Amen.
Thank you. For the 19th time, we come together to remember the attacks of 9/11, 2001. Many of us who stand here today participated in events on 9/11, from responding to this firehouse to responding and being assigned to a firehouse in the Bronx. And then in the days to come, some of our members were actually down at the site participating in relief efforts. So to us, never forget isn't just a phrase, it's a code in which we live by. So today, we're here to honor the 343 firemen, brothers and sisters, who passed away on 9/11, the police officer and EMS workers and other first responders who passed away on 9/11. And unfortunately, we continue to have our fellow firefighters pass away from 9/11 related illnesses every day. And that's going to go on for some time. And people who made the heroic leap to run into places where people were running away from continue to have medical problems, all for the sake of saving our community. It goes back to what we are here for. We're here to support our community and make sure that we keep people as safe as we can. So on this anniversary, this 19th anniversary of 9/11, we are going to remember our 343 brother and sister firefighters and all those who perished, as well as the families from all over, and especially the town of Newcastle. So now a tradition in the fire service, back in the days before radio equipment and communications, when a firefighter passed away in the city of New York, they sounded on the bell 5 rounds of 5 to signify to all the neighboring firehouses that a firefighter passed away. So in that tradition today, we honor all those who passed away on 9/11 or 9/11 related illnesses. Department, attention, and salute. every other day, please keep those who lost their lives during this tragic event in your hearts and remember them as they guide us through our mission of protecting the public every day. Department, dismissed!
On this September 11th, though we can't gather together, we still remember those we lost and give thanks to those emergency responders from Newcastle and elsewhere who responded to aid others and put themselves in harm's way, something we've only too often learned continues to this day in terms of the effects. We are appreciative of their efforts, and our hearts go out to those for whom this is a very solemn occasion.
19 years ago, on a beautiful summer morning, our world changed. We could not have imagined the scope of horror and tragedy that would unfold in just a few hours. But in the face of such a crisis, we saw countless examples of valor and sacrifice, which are true testaments to our national character. A character also defined by the kindness and generosity that people across this nation show to those in need. Today, let's make sure our determination, courage, and selflessness continue to prevail in this unpredictable world. And most importantly, let us honor and remember all those heroes who perished 19 years ago by working to make our world more peaceful and safer for all.
Hello, my name is Chris Ragusa. I'm Chief of Millwood Fire Department. I would like to thank everybody for joining together today to honor the lives that were lost on September 11, 2001. It is important, even during this pandemic, that we not to forget the men and women who lost their lives, the civilians, the first responders, and all the heroes that came together that most difficult day in our country's history. The Millwood Fire Company would like to honor and recognize the 343 firefighters, the 23 NYPD police officers, the 37 Port Authority police officers, 3 court officers, 1 patrolman from New York City Fire Patrol, and the 8 EMTs and paramedics from private medical service who lost their lives that day. Please join us in a moment of silence as we pray for them and their families. Company, 10, hut! Salute! Thank you. That concludes our service.
Hi, I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and I wanted to join my voice with so many in commemorating those that we lost on 9/11 19 years ago. Here in the town of Newcastle, in the hamlets of Chappaqua and Millwood, people come together to remember those that sacrificed so greatly that day. Everyday men and women that went to work and found themselves in an untenable situation, and those first responders who went to save them, and many of whom lost their life in the process of saving other lives. This is something that we can't ever afford to forget, and here in the town of Newcastle, the community has come together once again on September 11th to remember those who we've lost, those that made the sacrifice, and those that in the years after 9/11 suffered as well from diseases that followed them. We're together as an American family on a day like today. May we remember that more things bind us together than separate us.
One of the darkest days the people and soul of this nation have ever endured. 9/11 will forever stand as a day of incomparable sadness and pain. However, through the fires, carnage, and tragic loss of life, 9/11 is also a testament to the courage and strength, as well as the selflessness of our first responders and rescue workers. Not only did these men and women rise to the occasion to protect those they did not know, but they disregarded their own fears and stared down their own fate, or risking, or in fact paying with, their own lives in the collapsing towers and in the years since. With an unrivaled sense of duty and compassion, not just to their fellow Americans, but to all men and women, the first responders, firefighters, police officers, court officers, EMTs, and many others rushed towards and into the infernos. And similarly, countless rescue workers endured smoldering and toxic air while working on the pile and at the Pentagon, while others stepped up to do their part elsewhere in a host of other capacities. To call these men and women who overcame their own fears and set aside their families' hopes and dreams to save so many people as heroes is truly an injustice, for there is no word in the English language that can truly capture and describe the richness and depth of their character and sacrifice. And while we are humbled by their service and awed by their fortitude, we thank them and will forever thank them with the fullness of our hearts.
Today, of course, we must remember the nearly 3,000 people who died during the 9/11 attacks on our country. But we also must pay tribute to those who witnessed and survived that terrible day, for they have an important duty. As time marches on, the impact of 9/11 is becoming less a personal memory and more a part of our nation's history. More than ever, those who bore witness to these events must tell their stories so that we may teach our younger generations through the memories of others. It is incumbent upon us to remember 9/11, to demonstrate the triumph of human compassion over hatred, to inspire an end to ignorance, and to teach tolerance, love for each other, and the value of all human life.
I want to thank our American active duty service members and our veterans for your bravery in defense of the freedoms that we hold dear. It is your service that keeps our country safe and free. Thank you to all of our first responders, police department, volunteer firefighters, volunteer ambulance corps. The work you do honors the legacy of everyone that came before you, and particularly those that lost their lives on September 11th, 2001. Newcastle is fortunate to have such dedicated teams ready to protect our town and its citizens whenever the need arises. Thank you to all who serve our community.
National Day of Service and Remembrance, September 11th is also Patriot Day. Today, we are uniting across the country to volunteer in our local communities in honor of the individuals lost and injured in the attacks, first responders, and the countless who serve to defend our freedom. There are simple ways to help our neighbors, friends, and families. We can donate to numerous local food banks and pantries. We can donate blood or sign up for a local volunteer opportunity. It can be as simple as checking in on our neighbors, especially those who are older or alone. Through many generations, our service and our volunteerism demonstrate our strength as a nation.
Good morning from the 9/11 Memorial at Gedney Park. As a nation, we did not foresee the attacks of 9/11, and afterwards we were forever changed. and we had to adapt. We didn't foresee the pandemic this year, and as a group, CVAC had to decide individually whether they would continue to respond in order to protect their families. And we had to adapt in order to continue to serve the community. I'm Kate, I'm captain of CVAC, and we are all very proud to serve the people of Newcastle. Never forget.
I remember.
I remember.
I remember. I remember. I remember.
I remember.
Never forget.
I remember.
Never forget.
I remember.
Never forget.
I remember.
Never forget.
I remember.
My name is Hazuri, and I am a Girl Scout with Troop 2399 in Chappaqua. It is my honor to introduce the keynote speaker for the 2020 Town of Newcastle 9/11 ceremony. Retired Deputy Chief Thomas Dunne is a 33-year veteran of the fire department of the City of New York. He has extensive experience working in Manhattan and the Bronx. He has been the incident commander at hundreds of fires and emergencies in New York City. Deputy Chief Dunne has written numerous articles about firefighting and has published a book about his experiences in the FDNY. He is also an accomplished lecturer. Most importantly, he is a resident of the town of Newcastle. Please join me in welcoming Deputy Chief Thomas Dunne.
Good afternoon and welcome to all to the town of Newcastle virtual 9/11 ceremony. I want to first of all thank the town for giving me an opportunity to share some of my 9/11 thoughts with you, and in particular to thank the technical staff who have stepped up and pieced this event together for us in a manner that really none of us could have foreseen would exist a year ago. This is the day where we in Newcastle and throughout the country step back, as we always do on 9/11, in New York City, in DC, in Pennsylvania, and throughout the country. And we remember all those that we lost and all those that are still hurting, the hundreds of emergency responders and the thousands of civilians who were killed and are still, in some cases, suffering from illness today, including the 3 members of Newcastle that we lost on that day. 9/11 certainly has assumed a painful place in our nation's history, but at the same time, it's a deeply personal experience for so many people, particularly those people who lost loved ones on that day, and people who are, as I said, still feeling effects of 9/11 through various illnesses. It's also a very deeply personal day for me as a member of the New York City Fire Department, because we lost so many people on that day, and subsequent to that, a realization that a week doesn't go by where I don't hear about someone I knew or someone I worked with who has become ill because of exposure to 9/11 toxicants. I have, as we're speaking, on my desk, a small book that actually has photos of all 343 members that we lost on that day. And I make a point of taking this out periodically and looking at these many faces, some of whom I didn't really know at all, others that I knew very well and worked with. And it just acts as a reminder of how involved, how personal, how much of a loss this was. And that's only talking about one slice of emergency responders. There were far more police officers and EMS people throughout the nation working for us, and not to mention the thousands of civilians that were hurt that day. And I do like to point out that the EMS and fire and police were showing extraordinary actions that day, but we can't forget the fact that many of our civilians were equally brave, and there were some extremely heroic acts on their part. One thing that strikes me too, every time as we get to this stage in September of every year is the almost sad realization that we are more and more removed from that event, and that an entire generation of young people, including my own children, have virtually no memories at all of 9/11 because either they were not born that day or they were not quite old enough to recall what happened and what life was like back then. And I think about what I would want to share to them if I could sit down with a young person or somebody who had no concept of it. And there's so many thoughts that come to mind, but two of the primary ones are, first of all, 9/11 was about real people. It was about people just like ourselves who went to work, who lived their lives, who had their friends and their loved ones and their families. And for absolutely no reason, their lives were shattered on that day. 9/11 is not a ceremony. It's not a museum. It's not a history book, although there's certainly a lot to be said for what those particular things accomplish in terms of helping us remember. It is about real people, walking around, living people who experienced life just as we experience it today. The other thing I like to remember about 9/11 is that it was a time. 9/11 was a period, a very painful, a very frightening period. If you think back to what it was like back then, we were all on the edge of our seats, uncertain of what to expect, of what was going to happen over the next coming couple of weeks or the next couple of months, that there were so many uncertainties and unknowns. If you recall, in October, just a few weeks after the terrorist attack, there was a horrific plane crash at a JFK where unfortunately the entire personnel in that plane were killed. And we all immediately assumed that it was a terrorist act. It turned out not to be, but it exemplified our frame of mind back then of how we were just waiting for the axe to fall, not knowing exactly what was going to happen, certainly uncertain, nervous, and fearful for our futures. And I think it's significant that we're conducting this ceremony online today in the midst of a pandemic and a lot of other things that create similar fears and similar mental attitudes to what we were experiencing in 9/11 and the weeks after that. We're facing a virus that has affected the whole world. It's affected ourselves, our families, our jobs, our school system. And we have no clear idea at this point of the light at the end of the tunnel, when things will start to get better. And in the backdrop to that, we have fires devastating a lot of California. We have very damaging hurricanes hitting the southeast section of the country. And it certainly brings to mind all that fear and paranoia and uncertainty of that 9/11 era. However, I also like to remind all of us that there's something else from 9/11 that is very, very significant that will help us today. And that's that spirit that we all experienced in the days and the weeks and the months after 9/11. If you remember, we saw elements of that everywhere we went. People stepping up to help each other out, people in town here conversing and engaging with people that they normally didn't see for weeks on end. Anyone who worked down at the Trade Center site knows all too well that you couldn't walk 50 feet without someone coming up to you and offering you a bottle of water or something to eat. And I have such clear memories of finishing up very long and exhausting 24-hour tours working at the site. And as we walked off this site, there were always people in the street engaging us, shaking our hands, offering us water and whatever it was we happened to require at that time. There was a real spirit there that I think can help us through the times here. So 9/11, as devastating and as sad as it is, also reinforced basic elements of humanity and how if we reach out, we can help each other through virtually anything. I did want to share two things that have always guided me in remembering the people of 9/11 and at the same time helping me through any stressful periods in my life. And the first one is as simple as appreciating every day of your life, every moment of your life. A day doesn't go by where I don't really appreciate the fact that I've now survived 19 years after 9/11, and I have my family and I have my health. I find that just appreciating, slowing down, appreciating the health and good aspects of life really helps put things in perspective. And what seems like a upsetting incident on a certain day turns out to be nothing if you put it in the right perspective. The other thing I really try to practice, and I think this helps us remember those people, is we can change things and honor the memory of those people of 9/11 by our actions and by our deeds. All right, just as people helped out each other so much in those weeks and months after 9/11, we can be active today in helping each other out through the current crises by stepping up and engaging with people, by taking care of your families, by practicing social distancing, by wearing a mask, by stepping up and checking on neighbors, especially elderly neighbors who may not be as able to get to a drugstore or a supermarket as you can because of our abilities to move about more easily. So these are some of the thoughts that come to mind in my mind every 9/11. But in the midst of all the uncertainty and not being sure of what tomorrow or the next 5 or 6 months holds, there's always this one certainty, and that is that we know time goes by entirely too quickly. And before you know it, another year will pass and we'll be on September 11, 2021. And at that point, we'll be marking the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attack. And my hope today would be that the thoughts and emotions that we're sharing today will stay with us over the course of the next year, and that we'll continue to hold those that we lost on 9/11 in our minds and our hearts, and to honor their memory by our actions. So my sincere hope certainly is that when we do have an opportunity to meet again next September, that we're doing so in a much safer and calmer period of our lives, and that we can return to the handshakes and the hugs and the interaction that has so often got us through so many difficulties in the past. Until we reach that time, over the next year, I do want to wish for all of you health and safety, comfort and healing. So take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And again, my sincere thanks to the town for giving me an opportunity to share a couple of my 9/11 thoughts with you today.
Here are the names of the Newcastle residents that we lost 19 years ago today: Alan Schwartzstein, George Morell, and my dear friend Louis Inglaterra.
Good evening. This coming October will mark 19 years since I volunteered as a chaplain at Ground Zero. The most remarkable memories I carry with me are the times that I was asked by those who were working on the pile to walk with them to the cross that had been found among the ruins. It was actually a support beam that had remained intact as the building came down. A worker found 4 of these crossbeams together in a burned out building. He said it reminded him of Calvary. A plan was put in place to mount one of the crosses near the workers as they continued to search for the remains of those who had perished that September 11 morning. The sight of that cross brought them hope, even as they were in the midst of such terrible devastation, destruction, and ruin. I would be so deeply moved and honored when they would ask me to accompany them to pray at that cross. My dear friends, I invite you to please join me now in our closing prayer. O holy God, our country was shaken to its core by the terrorism that brought to an end the lives of so many innocent people in the buildings at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and the plane that crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Oh God, as you know, our world was rocked on 9/11, and it is being rocked again with the unrest in our country today. Oh God, help us to find symbols of hope to cling to, just as those who worked on that pile 19 years ago found through that cross. Dear God, help us to learn from our mistakes. Help us to support each other in this world that is becoming more and more complicated each and every day. May we be kind to each other and respect each other, no matter our faith tradition, our culture, or our skin color. God, help us to always honor and thank those who serve us, keep us safe, protect us, and help us when we are in a crisis. God, may we always keep our first responders in our hearts and minds as they rush in when everyone else rushes out. God, may all of those who died as a result of the attacks on 9/11 rest in peace. May their family members also find peace. And oh God, may all of us never take our lives for granted. May we consciously seek to make a difference in this world today and every day. Amen.
In closing, 9/11 reminds us that there's more that unites us than divides us. At a time when this country seems so divided, red and blue, black and white, masked and unmasked, 9/11 serves as a critically important call and reminder for unity. On September 11th, we proved that as Americans, we cannot be broken or divided, no matter the challenges that we face. When we come together, as we did after 9/11, when we stop looking for differences and start treating each other with kindness, generosity, and love, we show the world what it really means to be Americans. This year, more than any other since 2001, we are called upon to remember the lessons of 9/11 and to work hard through our words and deeds to honor the memories of those we lost that day. Thank you.